Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're doing amazing. Salmonella Academy. We're going to be talking about banana republics today. I think this term gets thrown around a ton, so hopefully we'll get some insight on what a real banana republic is. And hopefully we're not going to be talking too much about bananas. But given it's Salmonella Academy, you really just never know. Let's go now.
Hey kids, do you like fashionable, high-quality apparel at an affordable price? Well, too bad, because that's not what we're talking about today. I'm gonna learn you all a thing or two about the real banana republics. Our story begins during the turn of the 20th century in Central and South America.
And at this time, every single country in Latin America and South America has had independence for quite some time, right? I can't remember when Bolivar and so forth took place. Um, I imagine it's the 18th century that happened, but I can't remember.
Agriculture's kind of a big deal right now. You've got a ton of little plantations all over the place growing bananas, sugar, pineapples, that kind of thing. And they're doing alright for themselves, no big deal. But then refrigeration happened and it changed everything. Because now produce could be kept fresh for way longer in transit, meaning
So now you can build an empire of fruit.
the fruit companies could suddenly open up their business to the international market, their biggest new trade partner being the United States. This massive opportunity gave rise to three main companies, known as the United Fruit Company, Coyamel Fruit Company, and the Vaccaro Bros.
The United Fruit Company feels so familiar for some reason. I'm not sure how and why, but it does. Can't put my finger on it.
By growing, shipping, and selling fruit, these three firms made just obscene amounts of money, a lot of which went towards buying out smaller family-owned farms and plantations. This allowed them to make even obscener amounts of money, until eventually the only competition that remained was each other. And then shit got real. The year is 1910. One of the companies I mentioned, Coyamel, was doing most of its business in the country of Honduras, when the president of Honduras, Miguel Davila, decided to give a land grant to the Vaccaro Bros in exchange for helping to build some roadways. In doing so, they basically stole a bunch of Coyamel's potential plantations and gave them to a competitor. So Samuel Zamuri, owner of Coyamel, said to himself, "Dang, I hate those guys. If only there was some way for a guy like me to significantly influence the world around him for his own personal gain." Wait a minute. So he used a portion of his McDuck-esque fortune to hire a mercenary army, which
Oh my goodness. And it's interesting, wasn't there a bunch of operations in this area, not just for like fruit, but like other things like soda and chocolate and so forth? Oh, so much. But yeah, so he hired a militia because he feels like the competitiveness is being, his rightfully owned land that he should have been getting is being infringed. So he's a militia now.
he gave to one of his friends, former Honduran President Manuel Fortune, to hire a mercenary army, which he gave to one of his friends, former Honduran President Manuel Bonilla. And together, they overthrew the entire fucking government of
Fact check. What?
Honduras. Yeah. Should've called it Coyamel. Anyway, Bonilla took power and gave very generous concessions to Coyamel and United as thanks. But then America saw this, and they were like, "Hey, that's not very freedom of
Yeah, we do that, not you.
you, young man." To which Zemery replied, "It's okay, we're gonna help this country succeed. After all, politics and business are essentially the same thing." While I suppose it's not our place to be policing the governments of other nations, yet, still though, maybe. Oh, also, nanners. Alright, I'm sold, do what you want. So with their interests secured, the businesses continued to thrive and expand. But since they got cut so many breaks by the government, very little of their commerce actually ended up benefiting Honduras as a whole. In fact, the national debt of Honduras got so bad that the government ended up not being able to perform a lot of its functions. So in response, the three fruit companies stepped in and said, "No worries, we got this," and decided to basically build the nation's infrastructure for them, including roads, railways, shipping lines, telegraphs, telephone lines, radio towers. They even switched the whole
I'm not hearing a but yet, but like that's awesome. Like imagine, I'm not sure that many companies could do that today. Um, with how like wealth is distributed and like shareholders and so forth. Like anything that's an IPO, you really just can't do that. You would tank your company so much by selling off your shares. but private companies possibly could. But there's not a ton of things you could do like on a huge country, but like maybe like a smaller country, definitely. But a lot of those smaller countries just don't have, companies that are behemoths, unless you're talking about like mining or something like that.
Whole country off to the US dollar. Keep in mind, this wasn't out of the goodness of their hearts. It was mostly just to make their own businesses function more efficiently. But it was helpful either way. Anyway, now, not only did they have total power over their plantations, but also a monopoly over nearly every major industry in the country.
Not, I don't know how that's a good thing. So there's like bananas in 6 countries, 5 countries.
Many other Central American nations soon followed this pattern, creating a corrupt sort of symbiosis whereby the fruit companies get huge tax breaks and land grants in exchange for a modernized infrastructure and payoffs to the rich minority.
Well, it's not like all in bad faith, right? Because a lot of these fruit companies bring a ton of wealth from imports. Um, sorry, not imports, exports, by sending them to places like the United States.
And so, the banana republics were born. Sounds like a pretty sweet gig, right? And it was.
Banana Republic is it's thrown around synonymously with like third world nations. When you talk about countries that, so we're actually talking about bananas. What a banana republic actually is, like a political, like imagine the backbone of a country becomes a slinky. So like the Constitution is more or less like a document that you look at, not uphold. That's why it's been thrown around a lot in the United States in 2025 even, by both parties, but it's a continuous like term used to describe a government that is not functioning the way it should be.
Was. For the upper 5% of the populations who happen to hold some direct share in the plantations or shipping lines. For your average Jose, though, life mostly consisted of working on land that wasn't even theirs in exchange for dirt poor wages. So that's how things were for like a decade and a half. At some point, Coyamel was bought out by United, but then Zamore became the owner of the whole thing, somehow, and the Vaccaro company was renamed as Standard Fruit. Then one
Standard fruit.
day, in 1944, the country of Guatemala had a democratic revolution.
Yeah, wasn't that Bush?
And the newly
Or,
elected
that was Reagan, my bad.
leader, Juan Jose Arevalo, wasn't happy with how the companies treated his people, so he implemented several reforms like a minimum wage law and universal suffrage. And while the populace got a lot of benefit out of this, United Fruit most certainly did not, because more rights for their workers means less profits for the business as a whole. Then Guatemala got a new president, Jacobo Arbenz, and he continued these reforms. And United continued to get the metaphorical shaft until finally, in 1953, they decided to go to the USA for help. Oh, Eisenhower. Yo, what's up? This Jacobo guy, he's making us pay minimum wages. Well, that
I don't know what I was talking about earlier with Reagan. I'm thinking about Just Cause because Guatemala is part of Just Cause. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure that was in the 80s.
doesn't sound very good for
Around
business.
there.
That's not all, though. He's also taking our unused land and giving it back to the people. Does that sound familiar? Oh dear. You don't think. By the way it's looking, Dwight, I'd say he's a dirty, oh god, collectivizing
Socialist, communist.
commie. Commie! Commie! Yeah, go get him, Dwight. Holy shit, you actually did it. World Star! And from that point onward, Guatemala was ruled by a series of US-backed dictatorships all the way up until 1996.
Not surprised.
This kind of situation happened in several other places and times as well, almost always driven by some combination of red fear and yellow love. I won't give any more details for the sake of time, but that doesn't mean they weren't big deals. So you might be wondering, where did these companies go? Surely the clan of banana shenanigans can't still be around today. Well, that's where you're wrong. They're still in operation, just under different names. Standard Fruit changed their name in 1991 to become none other than Dole Food
I knew it was gonna be dull. That makes sense. Look at the colors. That makes perfect sense. Same colors. Just a sun.
Company. You know, when I was a kid, I used to play a lot of Super Monkey Ball, and I used to wonder, what kind of cruel tyrant would just stick an ape in a ball for their own amusement? Well, now I know.
Nice. Literally, there's Dole in the game. Nice.
Those bastards. As for United, one day in 1976, their CEO decided he couldn't take the heat anymore, so he jumped out the fucking window. That's a real thing, look it up. Then some other guy bought the company and renamed it to, drumroll please, Chiquita Banana.
So Dole and Chiquita, the two biggest fruit companies in the world, most likely, right? Are these companies that just rebranded over time. Makes perfect sense.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The face you once knew as an innocent, fun-loving dancer/fruit merchant is actually a ruthless tyrant who overthrows democracies and undermines basic human rights for her own profit. Anyway, that's all for today. Till next time, I'm Salmonella, and thank you for watching.
An older salmonella video, but one that was interesting. So these banana companies actually had such prominence in Latin America, and they created a behemoth of an empire to where they swallowed up another company, they overthrew governments, and they basically were bigger than the mafia if the mafia was in Latin America doing this fruit trade. Wow. I mean, this is the stories about bananas. Think about like commodities that are worth a lot more than fruit. Those stories. Oh, all right, guys. Appreciate you guys being here as always. Leave me some video suggestions down below. Peace out, and bye bye.